All right, so like I said earlier today, we were going to eventually get to factoring. And what it's called is we're going to factor quadratics that are in this form. Y equals, and this is the key here, this is the difference between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, is 1x squared plus bx plus c. That is what we call a trinomial because there's 1, 2, 3 terms. Now, just a little recap of what we did earlier today is I was expanding binomials, and I'm going to tie in how they relate to what we're doing now. And again, I used FOIL where I multiplied my first ones, right? So I had x times x, which is x squared. All right, my outside ones, so x times 5, which is a 5x. My inside ones, which is negative 3 times x, which is a minus 3x. And then my last one, so minus 3 times a 5, which is negative 15. And of course, again, to finish off any polynomial, you have to collect like terms. And so I have an x squared, 5x minus 3x. There's our like terms, same variable, same exponent. I'm going to get a positive 2x. And of course, I have my number 15, negative 15. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier today, going this way, what I just did, that's expanding. What we are going to do is go the other way right now. So I am going to take a trinomial here, again, with a 1 in front of the x squared, and I'm going to switch it back and make it look like this. That process is factoring. All right, so for example 1, I guess I should say, I am going to, well, I think I put it as 2, example 2. I'm going to factor this. I'm going to factor x squared plus 2x minus 15. When I factor it, when I undo the expanding, it's going to look like this. Now the question is, how do I get there? Well, here's what we do. I'm going to make a chart. All right. So I have a chart. And what I do with that chart is in the top left-hand corner of my chart, I'm going to put the first term. So this x squared goes right here. That's the top left corner of my chart. All right. In the top right-hand corner of my chart goes the last term, the minus 15. Now, these are what I call the easy factoring. All right, now with the easy factoring, what I want to do is I'm going to put, there's 4 spots here. There's a spot here, spot here, spot here, spot here. And what we're doing in these spots is what 2 things multiply to give me x squared. Now, when it's x squared, it's easy. It's always going to be x and x. Now, the other side, a little bit tougher. I got to come up with 2 things that multiply to give me negative 15. And so an easy answer would be 1 and negative 15. But here is the catch. Here's what has to happen. When I cross multiply in the bottom part of my chart, so if I take negative 15x, so times those 2, then add it to, again, cross multiply 1 times x, sum of those things have to add up to positive 2x, that middle term. And so in this case, if I take negative 15x plus 1x, I put those together, I get minus 14x. Again, I'm cross multiplying and adding those 2 things together. I get minus 14x. That's not my 2x. So what that means, unfortunately for me, those are the wrong 2 numbers. So I erase them. All right, so then I come up with 2 other numbers that multiply to give me negative 15. I'm going to go with a 3 and a minus 5. Now, again, I'm going to cross multiply and add them up and see if I get 2x. So I go negative 5 times x. That's a minus 5x. Then I have a 3 times an x. That's 3x. So if I take negative 5x and I add it to 3x, I get negative 2x. Yeah, I need a positive 2x, but I got the right number. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change this negative 5 to a positive 5 and make the 3 negative. Because again, 5 times a negative 3 will give me negative 15. Now I cross multiply and add. See what I get. 5 times x is 5x. Cross multiply minus 3x's. That gives me my 2x. So now here's what I'm going to do. Is my factors are right here in the table. I go across horizontally to write down my factors. So I have an x minus 3. That's the top part. And then the bottom, I have an x plus a 5. And now I just factored it. And guess what? See my answer here? It's the same as what I started with, right? Because factoring is undoing expanding. All right. So again, you got to be good with your multiplication tables and adding polynomials. That's a big plus. All right. So let's try a few more of those. All right, now, so let's go with example 3 here. It's a little wet. All right. So example 3, again, I'm going to factor. This time I don't know the answer, so I got x squared plus 12x plus 32. Now again, when I factor this thing, it's going to be 2 binomials multiplying each other. All right, so I'm going to have a bracket here and a bracket here. All right, so now I'm going to do my table. There it is. Actually, I'm going to draw it over on the other side. Give myself some room. So let's draw my table here. So we have 6 spots. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Again, the first term goes in the top left. The last term goes in the top right. Now to figure out what are multiplying. Again, when you have an x squared in the top left, the two things that multiply to give you x squared will always be x and x. Can somebody help me out here and give me 2 numbers that multiply to give me 32? Because I'll try them out. I'll do the crisscross and see if it works out for me. Anybody got 2 numbers? Multiply, give me 32. I can give it a try.
16 times 2.
16 times 2. Let's try it out. Okay, so now when I cross multiply and add these 2 together, I need a 12x. 2 times x is 2x plus a 16x. 18x. Those aren't the numbers we're looking for. Even though they multiply to give me 32, they're not working when I cross multiply. Anybody got 2 other numbers that might?
4 and 8.
Sorry?
4 and 8.
4 and 8. Let's try them out. I have an 8x plus a 4x when I cross multiply. 8x plus 4x. Bingo. We got a 12x. So now I have my factors. I go across horizontally. I have an x and a positive 4. So I go x plus 4 in this one bracket. And in the second bracket, I got an x and a positive 8. So I have an x plus 8. And there it is factored. All right, let's try a few more. So example 4, I get something like this. X squared minus 4x minus 60. All right, so once again, when I factor this, I'm going to get 2 brackets here, right? But again, I'm going to make up my chart. All right, so my first term, there it is, x squared. And the top right, we do our last term. It's a minus 60. Make sure you watch your signs. All right, and again, now to complete the table. I have an x squared, x and x. The best part of right now is that you only have to figure out one side of the table. At 11 o'clock, we're going to do both. 2 numbers that multiply to give me negative 60. So one's got to be positive, one's got to be negative. Anybody?
Negative.
Go ahead.
Negative 6 and 10.
Negative 6 and 10. All right, let's check it out. 10 times x is 10x minus a 6x. That's a positive 4x. We need a minus 4x. So we got the right number, wrong sign. So here's what I'm going to do, just like I did that first example. I'm going to change that negative 6 to a positive 6 and change that 10 to a negative 10. Now I've got minus 10x plus 6x's. I lose 10x's, I get 6x's back. Now I've got my minus 4x. So I write in my terms. I have an x plus 6 and an x minus 10. And there it is, factored. All right, let's I have to erase that. Do a couple more. Then we're going to do something a little bit different. All right, so let's see here. I have example 5, where I have x squared minus 14x plus 24x, or plus 24, I should say. There we go. And once again, when I factor this, we're going to get ourselves 2 brackets. All right, so I'm going to again draw my table over there. There we go. Again, first term going in my top left. The last term in the top right. All right, so now it's to complete my table. And once again, x squared. I'm going to have x and an x. But I do need 2 things that multiply to give me 24.
12 times 2.
12 times 2. Okay, try it out. I have a 2x plus a 12x. That gives me 14x's. I'm looking for a minus 14x. So I get the right number. Just got to mess around with signs. So here's what I'm going to do. If I make these both negative, negative times a negative will still give me 24. Now I have minus 2x's, minus 12x's. That gives me my minus 14x. And so I have an x minus 12. And going across, I have an x minus 2. And there it is, factored. All right, one more of those. Let's see here. Oh, this one's so easy, it's hard. I always catch people up on this one. I'm going to take x squared minus 13x plus 12. All right, so once again, I'm going to factor it. So it's going to have 2 brackets. All right, and let's see here. So again, making my chart. All right, so first term in the top left. Last term in the top right. All right, so once again, I have my x squared. So as I've mentioned many times before, this is where we have an x and an x. All right, now I need 2 things that multiply to give me 12.
Negative 12 and negative 1.
Negative 12 and negative 1. Okay, let's check it out. Minus 12x plus minus 1x. So I lose 12x's, I lose another x. Yeah, I lost 13x's. And so I have a x minus 12 in one of the brackets. And then the other one will be an x minus 1. And there we go, and it's factored. All right, now, here comes our new part, our new piece. Let it go here. Yeah, can't seem to find it. Well, I'll just have to do it on my own here. All right, so let's see here. So that's factoring quadratics in that form. Now, here's a little bit different. It's kind of a special case. Now, it's something called difference of squares. Oh, that's still a little wet. I'm going to wreck my markers. There we go. All right. So we have difference of squares factoring, it's called. Now, it sounds complicated, but it's right in the title. Difference means you're going to have a subtraction sign. The squaring part of squares, it means you're going to have something like this. Some term a squared subtracted minus b squared. All right, so this one looks a little different. And how we do a difference of squares, here's the formula. Again, we'll do some examples that'll make it hopefully much more clear. But again, you're going to have two brackets, right, when we're factoring. One's a plus sign and one's a minus sign. Now, what you do is with a difference of squares is you square root the first term. And it should be a nice number or a nice term because that's what difference of squares is all about. And so if I square root a squared, I get a. And so if that's the first term, it goes in the first spot. So I square root a squared, I get a. So it goes in both the first spots. I do the same thing with b squared. I square root it, I just get b. It's the second term. It goes in the second spot. Now, how does that really look when we're doing questions? Here we go. I'm going to factor x squared minus 25. There's our minus sign in between them. There's only two terms. Each of them is square rootable. So again, I got brackets. All right, I'm going to have a plus sign in one of them and a minus sign in the other. So if I square root x squared, what do I end up with? If I square root x squared. Anybody got a clue?
X.
Just x. It's the first term. I'm going to put an x in the first spot in both of them. I square root 25. What do I end up with?
5.
5. Second term, 5 goes in the second spot. And there we go. X plus 5 times x minus 5. It's factored. All right. B. You get something like this. X squared minus 81. So again, factoring it, I'm going to get two factors. One's a plus sign, one's a minus sign. Doesn't matter which order I put them in because they're multiplying each other. And when you multiply, it doesn't matter which order you're in. All right, so once again, we already did this part, right? The x squared, I square root it, I get an x. First term, first spot. I square root my 81.
9.
Second term, second spot. Here we go. All right, now I can step it up here a bit. Let's go C. I'm going to take, let's see here, 4x squared minus 16. All right, so I am going to factor it. So again, I'm going to have two pieces, just like that. Again, one minus sign, one plus sign, doesn't matter which order. So let's go change it up here, minus and plus. All right, now both those terms, again, there's only two of them, separated by a minus sign, both square rootable. Now, if I square root 4x squared, again, that's our expanded power rule. You got to square both of them. You got to square the 4 and you got to square the x squared. So if I square the 4, square root the 4, I get a 2. If I square root the x squared, we've already had that, you get an x. And so my first term is going to be 2x. Again, because the square root of 4 is 2 and the square root of x squared is x. And then we take the square root of 16, which we end up with
8.
8.
I mean 4.
Thank you. 4 times 4 will give you 16. Second term, second spot. All right, now last one. Let's see here. D. I can have something like this. 64x squared minus 36. All right, so once again, there's my two brackets. Plus sign in one of them, minus sign in the other. All right, and so let's see here. 64x squared means I got to square root the 64. I got to square root the x squared. What happens when I do that? Both things. What would I end up with?
8x.
First term, first spot. 8x here, 8x there. And of course, lastly, you square root the 36 and you get 6. Second term goes in the second spot. There we go. All right, so that again is 2 types of factoring. We factored the y equals 1x squared. Notice how I highlighted that 1 because at 11 o'clock, there won't be a 1 there, which means when we do that table, we're just not going to put x and an x on that left side. We're going to have to work with both the left and the right side. We'll get to that. And then this other special type, again, a difference of squares. Very huge in this unit. Like I said, this is the hardest unit of the course by far. And you have to be able to know how to factor. All right, so make sure you do your homework on this because when we come back in January, I'm totally going to do a homework check on one of the days today. All right, so at 11 o'clock, like I said, we'll get back into factoring, which is the 3rd type. We did 2 here. We're only doing 3.